the Gentlementor.
So, how are you, my friend?
I'm all right.
Yeah,
I'm fighting for it, but I'm all right.
you're fighting for it.
Yeah. It's been, wow, that makes your cigar look even bigger. That is enormous. That thing's got to be 14 feet long. Yeah. No, I overall I'm good. I've had some thoughts and lots and lots of feelings.
Yes.
And many thoughts and lots of feelings.
Well, let's start off. Tell me what some of those thoughts are that you've been having.
Well, the primary one and the reason that I was kind of like wanting to talk to you tonight, not because I don't like to talk to you, but I kind of need to.
I love to talk to you.
And not for any particular purpose or reason, but because, well, how does one say this delicately? The current situation in my home with my patient is
are we specifically talking about your offspring? Probably.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
okay.
it's all good. It's just like really eliminates a lot of the opportunity I have to share openly and honestly with another adult.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've noticed that I am not dealing with things as well as I normally do. And I'm like, I think it's because I don't really like. I had a head full of stuff I wanted to talk to you about on Sunday, and I didn't get to because it actually like people showed up and Charlie showed up, and not that I would take that back. That was all great. It would just postpone things, and like I don't know. I watched our little conversation we had from last week, and that was really cool. And there was a part in there where I was like, oh man, there's a whole nother conversation that I started to have, and then I lost my place, and I never quite came back to it.
Right.
So part of it is just like I always wanted to talk to you and just like visit and stuff because I need some grown up voices in my head.
Well, I don't know if you've come to the right place.
Well,
but I can certainly listen. If you need grown up conversation, I guarantee you I will listen.
Yeah. I don't need grown up input. I mean, I just like,
It's grown up, not I don't know.
It's been difficult. You're freezing there. Now you're back to moving. You've been through it. You've ridden this ride. My I think my perspective on this is that, and it's not new, but this is definitely kind of underlined it, is that the vacancy is the difficult thing.
The vacancy of your dad gone.
Yeah.
Right.
The idea that he's not there.
Yeah.
Do you need to do something? That's cool.
No, I just someone checking on me and they realized what I was doing. So
okay.
It's cool.
And so
because I'm not usually out in this setting, so
right.
I apologize.
That's quite a green screen background you got there.
It's
so realistic. Well,
I just thought it's so nice outside. I thought I want to get here. Anyway, I'm sorry. You're gonna have to back up. I'm sorry.
No, it's the most difficult thing is the vacancy.
It's the vacancy, right?
The idea that he's not there. Because here's this like towering figure of your entire life that's been there for as long as you've been alive, and then suddenly, somebody pulls a goalie and it's like, and it's not that I need anything or anything like that. It's just that idea.
It's that comfort of him not being there.
Yeah. Well, there was always somebody to call.
Oh, well, sure.
Yeah. If you're in over your head and you need somebody that's like had every life experience, here's somebody you can call that'll like go, okay, yeah, I've seen this all before, and you just
Yep.
And so
now you're the patriarch, right?
Thanks for bringing that up again. That's what Kelly said. The morning of the funeral, Kelly's like, when can I call? I'm like, well, today sucks, so not today, but anytime after today. Like 10 minutes later, the phone rings. That's him. Like, hey,
Yeah.
how's it going? Oh, nothing. Just waiting to get ready to go to this funeral. Oh, okay. So you're like the patriarch of the family.
Yep.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks. Yep. That's me. Old patriarch Doug. Patriarchy. Now, and of course,
Patriarchy.
I get to be part of the patriarchy the year it all goes bad.
Yeah.
Nobody wants
No,
patriarchy anymore.
it's 2021. You're okay now. If it was 2020, then it would be like, what's
I
going
don't know,
on?
man. I don't know. So now I'm the patriarch. So yeah, I don't know what that's worth. It was
I don't
it was
know.
just weird.
I don't know either, except probably more phone calls and more text messages from from people who are like, "Hey, I got a question for you. What do you think about this?" No, that's a bad idea to do with your money.
Nobody's ever listened before, so that will be really weird if people.
But that is what. Now listen. That.
Now listen.
I have a cigar in my hand, so that means that I have
pontificate, won't you? I have a tiny cigar, so my things aren't nearly.
I have a giant one, so my things are more important. I don't know. To me, it's like, okay, this is much more of importance on what we pass down. And specifically me, I have a son, and I know that's a little bit different. Huh. Yes, I do. And I know that's a little bit different from a man who has 2 daughters, which I do not envy. So trust me.
I know a man who has 3, so.
And I do not envy him.
Anytime I get to feeling bad, there's something I go, well, at least I only got 2.
Yeah. At least I'm not in your shoes. Anyway, it's just more of those things. It's like, okay, this is, I don't know. It perpetuates that importance of things we need to say. Like we talked about weeks ago. Why do we need to wait to say the things that we need to say? Why do we need to wait any longer to have those conversations that we need to have?
Well, isn't that an interesting segue?
Okay. All right. Do elaborate.
That is exactly the part of the conversation that we were having that kind of made me go, oh. And I don't know if I was getting ready to say it and forgot, or if I just hadn't developed the thought and it was kind of developing as I was listening to it.
Yeah.
But we had talked at one point, we kind of went through the whole thing about death and everything. And then we got onto this deal about the way we talk and the way we use words.
Yeah, I love the title you used for death. What was it? Death and
life,
something
death,
other
and words we say.
Life, death, and words we say. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Sometimes inspiration doesn't strike quite the same way. You just gotta throw something up and go with it.
But sometimes it's very inspiring to those who are looking on. So
well, we
nice
hope
work.
So. We hope so. And we had a point in the conversation there where we were talking about the way we talk and the things that we do with words and how we'll whisper cuss words and we'll whisper. Somebody has answer. Well, we have to whisper that. And as I was listening to you and I talking about the things with words, and I was not even realizing that we were talking about what we were talking about. Well, I did, but not in the same way.
Uh-huh.
One of the first things you said after I said that my dad had died is, why didn't you tell me?
Yes.
And I got to puzzling on that and thinking about that. And I'm like, you know what? When I make a realization about myself internally, I am reluctant to share it with anybody.
Okay. True.
And the reason that I do that is because on some level, once it comes out of my mouth, it becomes more real. If I tell you, man, and we've played this game a few times in life, dude, You're not going to believe what I did. I screwed up so bad.
Yep.
And then I'm locked in, and then I know I have to tell you, and I can't lie, and I have to tell you the truth. And once it's out, then it's real.
Yeah.
It's more real.
Right.
And so I started thinking about why I didn't call you or text you to tell you that my dad was dead. And it's because I didn't want to say those words.
You didn't want to, yeah.
I had to say it to everybody in my family. There was no way to get out of it. That's my duty as the patriarch now.
Right.
But when it came to you, like I said, Andy was unavoidable. He was driving the car when the phone rang.
Yeah, I understand.
And I didn't want to tell you. And I didn't want to tell anybody. I didn't want to make a post on Instagram. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to say anything about it because every time I said it, it became more real.
Right.
And right up to the, the culminating moment when you walk into the funeral home and he's laying there. And it's like, this is this suddenly got really real. Even though I don't know what your experience was. I'm sure we've all had this experience, the loss of a loved one, as you go up to the coffin and go, why is there a drag queen in this coffin? So that at least allowed for a moment or two of levity. It wasn't super organized or heavy or anything, and everybody was pretty chill. It was just that realization sinking in and like going out there to that cemetery, man. And I'll tell you what, here's another other thing I'll tell you about myself.
Okay. Do tell. I love that we're at the point of life where we're, we've been through a lot together in the 25 years that we've known each other. It's so cool that we're still experiencing new things because that's what life does to us. Anyway, sorry, go ahead. Sorry. Tell me about yourself. Tell me something I don't know. I'm ready.
You may know it. It's something I probably know about myself, and it's one of those things that kind of it comes into focus.
Uh-huh.
And it's always patterns. And of course, about my checkered past of employment and how those things have ended. Okay. One of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life is when we went to my brother's funeral. Mm-hmm. And at the military funeral, you're not allowed to be there when they lower the coffin into the ground.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so my brother's coffin was just sitting there. And they were trying to make everybody leave. And it was one of the hardest things I ever had to do was walk away from that coffin.
Walk away from that. Yeah.
I am bad at goodbye. And I look at that and I look at my job history and my inability to extricate myself from bad relationships before they plummet and burst into a ball of flame. And my dad, I had the same experience at the cemetery when my dad's thing was over. This knowledge that it was over and it's time to leave now. And like, no. Something inside me like kicked in and it was like, oh, that's that thing that doesn't want me to leave.
Yep.
And that, I don't know what the source of that is. I don't know where that comes from, man. But I'm like, I see that now. I can see it very distinctly. But an unwillingness to terminate.
We shouldn't be good at goodbyes. I mean, if you're good at goodbyes, there's a problem with how you handle relationships, right? I like your glass. Is that the same glass that I'm?
Thank you. It is. You should
drinking out of. Yes.
You should enjoy one your own self.
Here it is. Cheers. Love you.
Ding.
Right.
Love
ding,
you too.
We should have digital toast. Why don't we have it? You shouldn't be good at goodbyes. Nobody should be good at goodbyes until you get to be our dad's age.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is. I happen to notice that I seem to have an exceedingly poor ability to. And it seems like a lot of the headaches I've experienced in life could have been mitigated had I ripped off the Band-Aid or however you want to pull it, got out of the boat. However you want to say, whatever kind of thing you want to use there. But
I don't want to use anything.
Well, that's boring. Use me. Yeah, and so just like a lot of sitting around and thinking and realizations, and so I'm like, okay, I got to get some of this out of my head, so I need somebody to talk to. Mark will allow me to victimize him.
Sure, you know me. I'll allow you to. Be who you are. Go for it.
So yeah, all those things are the things that have kind of been messing around in my head. My anxiety levels have been elevated, and I hate that because it makes me behave in irrational ways that I don't like, and so that's not pleasant. Of course,
Well,
the emotionalism and tearfulness, but anyway, that's
sure.
yeah.
I want you to know. I was a little bit, I guess, a little bit shaken when you didn't tell me. You didn't text me or you didn't let me know, hey, I just want to let you know my dad passed away, and you told me Tuesday night in the fashion in which you did, which I thought was very creative. I've told that story a few times to people who just
Well,
like, hey, by the way, did you
again,
know that Doug's dad passed away? And here's how he told me. But I get it.
that is my inability to deal with it directly. I
Okay,
couldn't just come out and say it. I had to make a big circle of it to go around it. And I'm like sitting and listening to that, editing it, going, busted.
I want to back up and say it's not an inability.
Okay.
I want to say it's the way that you process, the way that you deal with that, the way that you approach that. You know that is healthy for you. You know that is a good place for you to be in. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Now, if you had waited till this week to tell me, oh, by the way, my dad died and we buried him last Thursday, I'd be like, what the hell? What? There's a problem here we need to talk about. But I think there's nothing wrong with going, okay, here's how I deal with this situation. I know me, being you say that I know me and I know how I need to process this, and this is how I'm going to bring it up. Why would we not be okay with that? Why are there people that are like, wait a minute, you have to text me the moment he passes away?
Yeah, no.
I know your every moment, your every feelings. No,
I'm fine with all of it except my own kind of like subterfuge or deluding myself. The fact that I was kind of doing what I was talking about without realizing that I was doing it while I was talking about it was a little silly. But yeah.
And if you're doing it to avoid emotions, if you're doing it to avoid the moment that you just need to cry, the moment that you just need to deal with those, that's one thing. But if you're dealing with it because that's who Doug is, that's totally fine.
That's just how I am.
Yeah, then that's who you are, and I'm okay with it. And I know that, and you know that I know that, and that's we've been
I do. I just thought it was really, like I said, kind of silly and interesting that here we are. I'm having this conversation with you about how people like do funny things with language because they fear the power of the things they're saying. And that's what I was doing, was avoiding that because I didn't want to say it, because I didn't want, every time you say it, it becomes more real. And it's like, well, once you see him laying there in the box, that's 100%.
And at that point,
100% real.
And at that point, there's nothing you can say to change the realism of the situation. There's no. I don't care how you wax eloquent, you're not going to change the reality of the situation, right?
True enough.
Yeah. So
it was pretty funny though. They had the preacher there, and he did a little.
They had the preacher who was in charge of this shindig. It wasn't you, obviously, huh?
Dad and Betty, I can't remember if it was last Christmas or the Christmas before, and Dad said,
Betty's his wife?
Betty's dad's wife, and he said, oh, for Christmas, I got you this for Christmas. We went and picked out our funerals. And so everything's planned. It's all paid for. It's all taken care of. You don't have to worry about anything. You just show up and it'll all be taken care of. So initially it was just supposed to be a graveside service.
Uh-huh.
And the heat was bad and people were coming in from out of town. So funeral guy, apparently being a stand-up dude who knew, says, hey, why don't you go? We don't have anybody booked in. Why don't you come and use the funeral home and be in the air conditioning and do most of it there? And then you can just do a quick thing out at the grave.
Great.
So it was like a throw together visitation. There wasn't any plan for it or anything. It was just like kind of randomly happened. So there wasn't organization or nobody really knew what to do. There wasn't a line like, you know, how you do. You walk in and you write in the book, and you walk by the thing and shake the hands with the people and you sit down and you try to mill around for a while. There was none of that because there just weren't that many people there. But yeah, and it was interesting. And the preacher's like, yeah, and Ray's been ready for this for a while. And Betty told me the other day he's been praying for the last couple of weeks that the Lord would take him home, and he's just been, more ready. Someday to like he's fighting for air and fighting for breath and fighting to live, and sometimes you just get tired of fighting.
Yeah.
But he was more than ready to go. In fact, there were days where he's past ready to go. And he said, I can't remember exactly what he said, but man, a picture of my dad popped into my head, like Jesus pulling up in the limo to get him, and dad getting in and going like, "You took your time." Because I told Andy, I'm like, that's exactly what he'd do for Jesus or anybody else. I mean, the glorious Lord of creation shines in. It's about time. I was beginning to wonder if I was going to have to walk. So I'm like, yeah, that sounds like Dad. That sounds right.
Well, I don't know.
I don't either, man.
You doing okay? What are some of the? So you told me some of the thoughts you had. What are some of the feelings you're having?
Just those, I like to call them after funeral feelings, where it's not really anything you can put a name on. Like, I'm having this feeling. It's just like, oh, I'm gonna cry now.
Yep.
And you kind of go and I start like, okay, where's this coming from? And it's like you can unpack it. It's all coming from grief. There's not like a clear thing. It's just like, oh, my dad's gone.
Yeah.
For the first couple of days after the funeral, it was really bad because like every time I closed my eyes, it was like this slideshow of like memories of my dad throughout my life, like having your life pass before your eyes, but just the dad highlights. And that was like, that was rough, but that went away. But for a while there, after the funeral, it was like I couldn't even close my eyes. It was just like, because all I could do was all I could see. And I'm like, no, I don't want that picture to be the last picture.
No, and I think I like the idea of closure that way, and I didn't have the same closure, and this was all my fault because of the way I handled my dad's passing. We did the cremation, and we put him in the box, and they called me up and said, "Hey, I've got the box. You can come pick up your dad." I'm paraphrasing. That's not what they said necessarily, but
I assumed it.
And it's
a slight bit more decorum.
I know when they call and say, "Hey, your dad's remains are ready." That that's the terminology fits my theology, I guess, because it's not my dad.
Walker,
he's not there.
Pick up Walker. Walker.
2301, your order is ready. And I know it's they were sensitive to that, and that fit my theology well. But and again, I know that it's not my dad, but anyway, that, what am I trying to say? That prolonged the funeral of my dad. So it was 3 months later that we actually had a burial service for him at the graveside. It was a couple of months before they put the marker on, and then there was a graveside service, and then a month later I dusted his ashes in Hawaii. And then now I have a piece of him still remaining in the box that I have to actually bury at the cemetery that I still haven't done. This is right down the road here. I still haven't done that, and that's still coming. That's still going to be another segment. You got all this done and over with in a matter of easy, hey. You got all this done in a matter of
days.
A week.
Yeah,
days, and I'm still prolonging it for 6 months into it. I'm like, what have I got myself into?
Right, but you had to make all the arrangements. I didn't have to make any arrangements. It was all pre-made.
True.
It was a ripcord. All it had to do was somebody had to pull it. So
right, and it was already in action by the time he had passed away. Right, so you didn't have to pull it. Yeah. which is another thing that's like on my heart. It's been, and Deborah and I's both, where we're like, okay, we need to make sure that this chain of events is already ready to go for the ripcord to pull. And I like that analogy. That's a ripcord. When that happens, this and this and this and this is done. And so my kids don't have to go, okay, now what? What do we have to do? Yeah. What's happening here?
I don't know. You went to still shot there. I think did your bandwidth drop?
No, somebody's calling me. So
okay.
That's
right. You're on your phone.
Decline. Yeah, I'm on my phone. So nobody needs to talk to me right now. So
I do.
Anyway, nobody besides you.
Oh, okay.
So that's another thing that's like, I almost envy you about. But from my perspective, it's like, I'm enjoying taking my time to remember him. And then, like I told you, I think last week, it wasn't until I sat down that night after I spread his ashes and I was on the lanai there at the hotel. It was like, that was when I had a good cry.
Right.
Finally, I was by myself, but it wasn't until I was writing that post that I realized that was the moment that I was able to honor him and enjoy the memories that I have with him, until I wrote that post and said, I really enjoyed my 50 years with him, and this man has been great. Anyway, we all process differently. We all go through different things in our walk. And here's what I know, Doug. I'm going to be here for you when you hit those milestones.
Oh,
whether it's 5 months out, 6 months out, 5 years out, I'm going to be here, dadgummit. I'm going to be here for you. What are you looking at?
I wanted to tell you about this thing. We're talking about
this thing.
We're down the funeral street now, and I probably told you before.
Tell me about it.
One of my very favorite documentaries I've ever watched. I had to look it up to get the right name. It's called A Family Undertaking.
Okay.
And it is goes into the resurgence in do-it-yourself home funerals.
Can that be any better than do-it-yourself home births?
Well, it makes a really interesting case, and this is why I bring it up, because of something you just said.
Okay.
Prior to the Civil War, there was no funeral industry in the United States. People had local undertakers. When you died, your family prepared the body. The visitation was in your house. Sometimes went on for a week.
Yes.
The family sat around. A lot of times it happened in the living room, and they would have the dead body there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the whole...
I've got that now.
Yeah. Well, kind of, yeah.
Except not a...
Walker?
Just... Okay, go ahead.
And so they had, I think this woman, I don't know if she's a psychologist or just a special, just another freaking expert, because we need another expert. But she's talking about how psychologically we process and grieve and recover from grief more fully, more completely when we are allowed time to do it.
Okay.
And so prior to the Civil War, it wasn't an issue. But the Civil War, because people were dying all over the country and they had to embalm them to get them to where they needed to be buried and stuff.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's what kind of lit the fire under the funeral industry that we have today. But there is a resurgence in certain parts of America for people to start doing home burials again. And this documentary, I think, follows like 4 or 5 different people as they're making their preparations through death. Several of them actually die, and you see the actual home funeral. My favorite one is this old rancher guy. I think he's in Wyoming or South Dakota.
Yeah.
And it's him and his son and his grandson in the barn, and they build his coffin, all of them together.
Wow.
Yeah. And it really opens your eyes to some things. It makes you think about things, because I won't lie, I'm not what I would call traditionally squeamish, but I'm not into funerals. I find the whole thing, the way we deal with death, a little bit creepy.
Yeah.
But most of what I found out through this thing is a lot of the stuff that creeps me out is the funeral industry stuff. It's the machine stuff. And this idea that we go through a funeral and mourning and everything encapsulated in a week kind of makes it even more difficult for us to heal from the injury, because it's such a truncated process and we're forcing it to happen unnaturally quickly to get it over with.
Okay.
And what this woman says, and she makes a really poignant comment in this thing, and she's one of the main ones. She says what opened her eyes to this was when her daughter died. And she had a daughter who died, I think, at 6 or 7 years old from cancer.
Oh, gosh.
And the daughter died at home. And she said the undertaker came to take my daughter away. And it was like all of a sudden, it never bothered her before. She said all of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute, no way. This is my kid. This kid grew in my body and came out of me, and I raised it. Every day this kid's been alive, I'm not going to turn it over to you on the last day.
Yeah.
And she has kind of become the champion for this do-it-yourself funeral thing. I'm all for it. I think it's great. And that's what I have told my children. I said, I don't know if I will have the means to make plans for you, but here's the plan I want you to plan. Do it as quickly and as cheaply as you can. Because once I'm gone, baby, I'm gone. Take that money and go on a trip and think about me. Go somewhere you know I'd like to go and sit there and go, wouldn't Dad like this? Don't waste it on fancy boxes and headstones. That's zero.
The Gentlementor.